Susan Robin Bender was born on November 27, 1970, in Modesto, California, as the only child of Patricia Chupka Bender. On April 25, 1986, Susan, then 15 years old, left her family home to visit friends in Carmel by the Sea for the weekend. She walked to the Greyhound bus station on 10th Street and G Street. While waiting for the bus, Susan ran into friends. She told them about her excursion to the coast and that she planned to be back in a few days. After their conversation was ended, Susan made a call at the depot payphone. About 10 minutes later, a full-sized olive green 1977 Ford van pulled up. Susan got into the vehicle. This was the last time that Susan was seen. She had a lot of freedom for a 15-year-old, which was not terribly uncommon in the 1980s. Pat Bender, Susan's mother, assumed that Susan had safely made it to Carmel and was having fun with her friends. When Susan failed to call home, as she usually did, her mother became worried. She reported her daughter missing on May 1, 1986. Detectives soon came to the conclusion that something terrible had happened to Susan. One detective told the local newspaper, "We have certain evidence to indicate foul play was involved in the disappearance of Susan Bender." Susan's mother told the same newspaper that Susan had run away twice before, but each time she had returned home in fairly short order. She said, "Everything had been good between us for a couple of months before she disappeared. There was no indication that she was going to run away." She added that an unnamed male person of interest had been found with Susan's diary, phone book, and clothing in his possession. Pat continued, "I am afraid she was attacked by a man the police questioned but never arrested. They did not arrest him even though they had a lot of circumstantial evidence against him." Police always believed Susan was not missing of her own volition. Detective Richard Ridenauer, who was assigned to the case until his retirement in 2000, told a newspaper in 1987 that he thought Susan was most likely not alive anymore. In 1999, Susan's mother said in an interview, "The police said there is little they can do without a body." Detective Ridenauer commented in that same year, "Susan Bender just fell off the face of the earth. What is really strange about this case is that nothing has ever come up about her in all these years, and no one has ever come forward with any information about what happened to her." Also in 1999, Lauren Herzog and Wesley Shermantine, two childhood friends from Linden, California, targeted young women in and around the nearby Stockton area. There was some speculation that perhaps Susan was one of their victims. Many of their victims have never been identified. Authorities did not know if the men had anything to do with Susan's abduction, but it is possible as she vanished in the time that they were busy with their evil deeds. Susan's disappearance fit their modus operandi for victims. But despite years of investigation into Herzog and Shermantine's crimes, there had never been a link to Susan's case. They went on a spree in the 1980s and 1990s. They took the lives of several females and may have had more than 15 victims. In the meantime, Susan's case remained unsolved. For nearly 4 decades, investigators spoke to family and friends who fought to keep Susan's story alive. Sandy Silveria, a friend of Susan, commented in 2021, "Where is she? What happened to her? Whoever did this, they have to be held accountable." In October 2021, the Modesto Police Department announced that they reopened the case in the hopes of finally locating the long-lost teenager. The department said in a statement, "In reviewing this case, we identified potential areas of opportunity which may assist in moving this case forward. This includes the use of advancements in technology. Given the circumstances of the crime, we also believe there may be individuals, previously unidentified, who may have pertinent information surrounding Susan's disappearance. Modesto's cold case investigators were hoping that the many years since Susan's disappearance had increased witnesses' willingness to speak out. The police department said in a statement in 2022, "It is important to remember that Susan was a child with a family. Unfortunately, that family has gone 36 years without closure or justice. It is our job as an agency to assist in providing some level of closure with the ultimate goal of getting justice." Then, on Thursday, August 17, 2023, the Modesto Police Department announced the arrest of Raymond Lewis Stafford. He is 76 years old. Stafford was arrested on August 15th in Wills Point, 50 miles east of Dallas, where he had been living for around 5 years. Stafford appeared to be hiding in plain sight for decades. Detectives got an arrest warrant on August 10th, but it was not until Tuesday that members of the Van Zandt County Sheriff's Department in Texas showed up at his home and took him into custody. He was arrested without incident and subsequently booked into the Van Zandt County Jail and charged with taking Susan's life. Modesto police did not give further details about what they believe happened to Susan. Stafford is currently incarcerated in Texas, awaiting extradition to California. Exactly how detectives zeroed in on Stafford as a suspect has not been detailed. Modesto police are differing questions to the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office, saying there was no other information they could release. Newspapers and local radio stations did reach out to the Modesto Police Department and Stanislaus County District Attorney to learn what led to the suspect's arrest, but did not receive a response. No information was released about how exactly Susan might have met her end, whether there is any chance of recovering her body, or what new evidence resulted in the charges against Stafford. In a news release, Modesto police expressed their gratitude to the Stanislaus County District Attorney's Office, the California Department of Justice, and various Texas authorities for their help in the long and challenging investigation. It said, "The collaborative efforts of these agencies have been instrumental in bringing closure to Susan Robin Bender's case. As detectives suspected foul play right from the start, they had a suspect nearly from the start." According to court records filed in Stanislaus County, investigators at the time traced the green van to Stafford after he was arrested on suspicion of an unrelated burglary a month after Susan vanished. He had not been publicly named at the time. In the course of their investigation, they learned that Stafford had briefly worked with Susan's mother, Patricia Bender. At the time, she said that she believed Stafford may have formed a relationship with her daughter after calling their home phone. Court documents showed that Pat worked for Stafford for a few days back in 1985 at his security business. They also said she admitted to dating Stafford on a few occasions. Thus, Stafford was well known to Susan. It was his rental van which Susan had been seen getting into at the bus stop. She got into his van without hesitation, according to her friend, who witnessed everything at the day of her disappearance at the bus station. A woman who lived with Stafford in the 1980s said he confessed that he strangled a female with a cord or wire and buried her near the Big Oak Flat entrance to Yosemite. He said, according to court records obtained, that he drove to a campground near the Big Oak Flat entrance to Yosemite National Park and dug the grave. Less than a year after Susan disappeared, Stafford, then 38, ran for Modesto City Council. He was asked by the local newspaper about his criminal record, but told the paper in July 1985 it was a result of him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. His arrests were listed as operating an unlicensed private investigator business and carrying a badge saying he was a private investigator. Stafford said that his campaign was focused on policies to protect children from predators. He added, "We do not spend any time getting the people who are harassing our children." Unsurprisingly, he lost the election. 5 months later, in December 1986, Stafford was convicted of setting a business on fire and pled guilty to making a false police report. He reportedly faked a kidnapping to avoid appearing in court. In 1994, he emerged once again on law enforcement's radar. He was put on an offenders register under the alias Greg Tunningley for abusing a 13-year-old girl in California. New court records identified the man as Stafford. Pat revealed she always suspected Stafford was behind her daughter's disappearance after she discovered the pair had carried on a secret relationship. Pat said, I have known from the start. When my daughter came up missing, I have known that he was the person responsible. The investigators did not listen to me." Pat added that thought had lived with her for the past 37 years. She continued, "It was like I was lost. Honestly, it was like I was the walking deceased woman. It hurt when I heard people talking about their grandkids and their kids." Pat said the memories of her 15-year-old daughter were what kept her going. She remembered, Susan was outgoing. She was funny. She was just an average teenager, just trying to figure out where she fits. Pat never lost hope, but the quest to find her daughter was agonizing until now. She said she has had to lean on her faith. She stated, "I'm grateful. I'm glad that the system has finally decided to step up and do something instead of have me wondering." Those closest to Susan hope to learn where she is in hopes of giving her the farewell they always felt she deserved. Now, in the final act, her mother says the one thing she has never wrestled with is forgiveness toward Stafford. "I know this is going to sound kind of strange, but I have forgiven him for what he did to my daughter. I really have, because I would not want to carry that with me for the rest of my life." Pat said this arrest has lifted a dark cloud from her shoulders. "Now I am not looking forward to how the trial will play out. I just want Susan's body found." She concluded, "My message is a simple one. Start listening to your kids." Sarah Ashley Hill was a 33-year-old mother of two who worked as a waitress at a local diner in Patrick County, Virginia in 2018. She was known for her cheerful smile, her kindness, and her love for music and dancing. She had a close relationship with her sister April, who often helped her with her children. Sarah was one of 5 siblings and the only one with that pretty red hair and bright blue eyes. Her siblings used to tease her and tell her she was adopted. In June 2018, Sarah was staying with her friends in North Carolina. At 1:30 a.m. on June 6th, she called April on her cell phone and told her she was near Mount Airy on Blue Hollow Road and needed a ride. Sarah did not explain why she was walking at that time of the morning. April was at work almost an hour away and could not just leave. She was a registered nurse at U Chatham Memorial Hospital in Elkin. By the time the family arrived in Mount Airy, Sarah Hill was nowhere to be found. They assumed she had gotten a ride elsewhere, or maybe found a way to access her own car, a white 2000 Ford Taurus. The next day, April sent Sarah a text to see if she was okay and if she still needed a ride. April got no reply. April called again, and messages went to voicemail. After 2 weeks, Sarah's phone had been turned off. It was very unusual for Sarah to be out of contact, according to April. They talked at least once a week, sometimes more often. April noted that Sarah was addicted to illegal substances and was friends with a lot of shady people. April wondered if it played a role in her sister's disappearance. A month after Sarah was last seen, she was finally reported missing. Detectives immediately started investigating. After her disappearance, her white Ford Taurus turned up at a store on NC 89 near the Blue Hollow Road intersection. It was caught on video footage the store owner obtained while trying to catch shoplifters, but Sarah was not identified among any of the individuals suspected of wrongdoing there. The police searched the car and found Sarah's purse, phone, keys, and some personal items inside. However, they did not find any fingerprints, DNA, or other clues that could link anyone to her disappearance. The police considered all possible scenarios for Sarah's disappearance. They investigated if she had any enemies or problems with anyone who might have harmed her. They checked if she had any debts or financial troubles that might have driven her to run away. Investigators also looked into whether she had any history of mental illness or substance abuse that might have affected her judgment or behavior. They explored if she had any romantic affairs or domestic disputes that might have led to violence or jealousy. However, they did not find any evidence to support any of these theories. During the investigation, in January 2019, the Surrey County Sheriff's Office checked several locations throughout the county, which included 3 different properties on King Park Circle, Mount Airy, North Carolina. In retracing Sarah's last known steps, investigators believed she was in a location in nearby Stokes County where she had been hanging out with a guy. This person of interest acted suspiciously, including refusing access to his home. It was discovered that the man had previously been charged with assault. In 2022, they were led to an Ashbury Road property in Stokes County, North Carolina, where Sarah was last seen at the time of her disappearance. On Monday, October 17, 2022, the Surrey County Sheriff's Office, in conjunction with the Stokes County Sheriff's Office and the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, executed a search warrant for the property of 1791 Asbury Road, Westfield, North Carolina. Detectives brought in specialized personnel to utilize heavy equipment to move dirt and terrain and stabilize an existing structure. Human remains were located beneath the floorboards. The remains were sent to Atrium Health Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center. On October 20, 2022, an autopsy was performed and confirmed that the remains were of Sarah Ashley Hill. On October 11, 2023, the Stokes County Sheriff's Office announced that Leroy Hoover had been arrested and charged with taking Sarah's life. Hoover is currently in the Stokes County Jail with no bond awaiting trial. He has other cases also pending in Stokes County. Sheriff Joey Lemon said, "We can only imagine how hard this has been for the family of Ms. Hill." Investigators from the Patrick County Sheriff's Office, Surrey County Sheriff's Office, Stokes County Sheriff's Office, as well as the NCSBI agents who worked on this case, have done a tremendous job, and they never gave up. Although nothing will bring a loved one back, we can only hope this helps provide some closure to Ms. Hill's family. 29-year-old Teresa Scalf was a kind and caring nurse who worked at Lakeland Regional Health in Florida in 1986. She loved helping people and taking care of her son, Jason, who was 8 years old. Jason was her only family, as she was a single mom who lived by herself with him in a small apartment. Teresa had brown hair and green eyes, and she always wore a smile on her face. She was a friendly and cheerful person who had many friends at work and in her neighborhood. She enjoyed spending time with her son, reading books, and watching movies. She also liked to travel and learn new things. She had a dream of becoming a doctor someday and saving more lives. One night, on October 15, 1986, when Jason was staying with his grandma Betty, Teresa was alone in her apartment. It was a dark and stormy night, and the rain was pouring down. An unknown man broke into her home. He had a knife and he wanted to harm Teresa. He had left his fingerprints on the doorknob and the windowsill. He had also left his DNA on a cigarette butt that he had discarded on the floor. He assaulted Teresa with his knife and attempted to force himself on her. Teresa fought back with all her strength. She tried to protect herself with her hands, but he injured them severely. He was stronger than her, and he inflicted a severe injury on her throat. He ended her life and left her body on the floor. He fled from the apartment. The next morning, when Teresa did not show up to work, her mom, Betty, became concerned and went to see her. She found Teresa's body in a pool of blood. She called the police, and they arrived at the apartment. They collected all of the evidentiary items from the crime scene and stored them to be used later. Plenty of suspects were interviewed and leads were followed, but investigators could not identify the perpetrator and the case went cold. Finally, on October 16, 2023, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd announced that the case had been solved. They were able to confirm that Donald Douglas was responsible for what happened to Teresa. Douglas was 33 years old at the time of the crime. He co-owned an electrical company with his brother. Douglas passed away due to natural causes in 2008 at the age of 54. Douglas had no past criminal record and was also cremated after his passing, which made connecting him to the case all the more difficult. Teresa's mother, Betty Scalf, and two of Teresa's sisters joined Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd for a news conference, as Judd described how his agency solved the 37-year-old case. Sheriff Judd said that Douglas lived just behind the duplex, and investigators interviewed him and other neighbors at the time but never considered him a suspect. Judd said detectives originally investigating the case had seen no wounds on Douglas and had no reason to suspect him. Judd speculated that Douglas took Teresa's life because he sought a relationship with her and she rebuffed him. Judd explained that as technology advanced, the agency entered DNA taken from the crime scene into the FBI's national database in the early 2000s, but found no matches, meaning the perpetrator's DNA had not been entered. Judd credited Detective Matthew Newbold with leading the effort to resolve the case after receiving it in 2015. Newbold kept a photo of Teresa Scalf on his desk and vowed to her family that he would not retire until he had identified the perpetrator. Newbold worked with Othram, a Texas company that specializes in developing genetic samples from crime scene evidence. Using publicly available DNA that people submit through such programs as 23andMe, the company helped create a family tree for the suspect. One hit landed on a third cousin of Douglas who had conceived a baby outside of marriage in 1949. What Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd described as the illicit affair ultimately exposed a new family tree branch. David Nutting, a company representative for Othram, said it was the 106th publicly announced solution to an unsolved case through Othram's DNA research. He said there are an estimated 330,000 unsolved cases in the United States. After identifying Douglas as the perpetrator, sheriff's investigators contacted his son and asked for a DNA sample. He fully cooperated, Judd said, and was mortified to learn that his sample confirmed that Donald Douglas's blood had been found at the crime scene. Pam Shade, Teresa's sister, said, "The first thing that I would like to say is Teresa was a wonderful person, the most loving person. She did not deserve it. Our family did not deserve this." She added, "She started off at the bottom, nursing assistant. She went to respiratory school. She got her RN and was so proud. I've never seen anyone more proud. She said, 'I did it, Pam. I did it.' And she lost her life a month later, after we had this conversation. I hope it gives everybody comfort to know that we now know who did this. I also would like to offer encouragement to other victims. Do not give up. Law enforcement do not give up. And as long as they do not give up, you do not give up." Teresa's other sister, Lynn Scalf, said that Teresa shared that she had some uncomfortable experiences with a neighbor, but did not fully describe him, offering that up as a cautionary tale for present-day stalking victims. Teresa had told us about some creepy neighbor that had showed up at her house with what looked like he had yanked a flower up out of the ground and slapped it into a pot. He was sort of stalkerish, and she had told us about him, but she never described him. So anybody, but especially ladies, if someone is being creepy, do not just tell your sisters, tell them what he looks like. When Betty Scalf took to the microphone, she said, "All I want to say is, I am 84 years old. I lived to see this done. I think that is why I lived so long."